So thanks for coming to hear just a wonderful, distinguished speaker, Vijay Govindarajan. From now on, I will call Vijay, which is what he's known as worldwide. This session is sponsored by the School of Business, of course. I'm Dave Pike. I'm the Dean of the School of Business. The Changemaker Hub here at USD and its director, Mitch Williams, who will be participating with some of what we're doing. The Center for Peace and Commerce, which is a joint effort between the School of Business and the Coxe School of Peace Studies. Dean Marquez is here from the School of Peace Studies. And the Aller Center for International Business, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. And Dr. Denise Diamond, who is the director of the Aller Center, is here as well. Aller's is as a speaker series. This session today is part of that on how business can make positive change in society. And a number of speakers have been on that topic this year. Keep your eye out for additional ones through the academic year. And if you're interested in getting on their mailing list so that you see what those opportunities are, find Denise, who's going to raise her hand right now, or Erin Kellaway, who's raising her hand in the back. They will certainly get you on that mailing list. So thank you all for that. It's my pleasure to introduce good friend and former colleague Vijay Govindarajan. Vijay is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts on strategy and innovation. He's the holder of the Coxe Distinguished Professorship at the Tuck School at Dartmouth. It's a new university-wide, which is a highly unusual professorship, and he's the first holder of that faculty chair. He was the first professor in residence and chief innovation consultant for General Electric. He worked closely with Jeff Immelt, the CEO of GE, to write an article, How GE is Disrupting Itself, for the Harvard Business Review. And in that article, they pioneered the concept of reverse innovation, which you'll hear about today in much more detail, an innovation that's adopted first in the developing world and then translated back. HBR actually picked that idea, reverse innovation, as one of the great moments in management in the last century, which, given the quality of work that's appeared in that publication, quite remarkable. In the latest Thinkers 50 rankings, Vijay is ranked the #1 Indian management thinker and has been highly rated on similar rankings of strategy and innovation thinkers by almost every publication that does that. He has written for the Harvard Business Review, Bloomberg Business Week, and other publications, which I'll highlight in a second, and is the co-leader of a global initiative to design a $300 house, which in San Diego, you can imagine what that would be like. It's a phone booth, probably smaller than a phone booth in San Diego. He's been ranked, Vijay has been ranked as outstanding faculty by Business Week in its guide to the best business schools, top 10 business school professor in corporate executive education by Business Week, top 5 most respected executive coach on strategy by Forbes, top 50 management thinker by the London Times, rising superstar by The Economist, and others. Prior to joining the faculty at Tuck, he was on the faculties at Harvard Business School, INSEAD in Fontainebleau, and the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. He's been awarded numerous research article awards, the Academy of Management Journal, one of the leading journals in strategy, in their Hall of Fame. One of his papers there was recognized as one of the 10 most cited articles in the 40-year history of that journal, AMJ. He's a rare faculty member, and this, believe me, is rare, to have published more than 10 articles in top academic journals like AMJ, SMR, and AMR, for those of you who know those names, and more than 10 articles in prestigious practitioner journals like the Harvard Business Review. He's received the McKinsey Award for the best article in HBR and has published the book Reverse Innovation, which is a bestseller by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. We have 100 copies of Vijay's book. They will be in the just outside in the foyer. Afterwards, we have 200 people registered. So look to your left, look to your right. Somebody's not getting a copy. If you want one, please help yourself. If you want one to try to sell on eBay, please don't help yourself. Leave it for someone who will be reading that. Vijay's worked with CEOs and top management teams at more than 25% of the Fortune 500 companies to discuss and challenge and escalate their thinking about strategy. His clients include Boeing, Coca-Cola, Colgate, Deere, FedEx, GE, HP, New York Times, Sony, P&G, Walmart, and others. He's been a keynote speaker at the Business Week CEO Forum, HSM World Business Forum, TED, and the World Economic Forum at Davos. I have a picture in my mind when I was back at Tuck and of the panel at the advertisement in Business Week of a panel for their CEO Forum, and there was John Major, some of you remember that name, from the UK, and there was Vijay and several other world leaders on the same platform. He received his doctorate from Harvard Business School. He has an MBA with distinction from the Harvard Business School, and prior to that was a chartered accountancy degree in India, where he was awarded the President's Gold Medal for obtaining the first rank nationwide. Vijay's going to talk for a bit, and then we'll open up for questions, which he will take at that time. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, colleague, and basketball fan, Vijay Govindarajan.
"12:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. This is a deadly time slot for making presentations. See what happens this time of the day when you start giving presentations? After about 30 minutes of presentation, you tend to lose 50% of the audience. They're gone. Not physically, but mentally they kind of wandered away. In fact, what research shows this time of the day when you start giving presentations, after about 45 minutes of presentation, you tend to lose 75% of the audience. After about an hour of presentation, you tend to lose 100% of the audience. So by 1:30, all of you will be gone. What research shows this time of the day when your mind begins to wander away, what it wanders to is your wildest fantasies. So at least at a minimum, it'll be an exciting 1 hour. That's all I can promise. What exactly is this reverse innovation? You see, historically, companies innovated in a rich country like the US and sold those products in a poor country like India. Reverse innovation is doing exactly the opposite. It's about innovating in a poor country like India and then selling those products in a rich country like the US. When you stop to think about it, this is completely counterintuitive. Why? Because it's perfectly logical to see why a poor man would want a rich man's product. Rich man is driving a car, poor man wants a car. Rich man has a cell phone, and this poor lady, she wants a cell phone. But it is not that logical to see why a rich man would want a poor man's product. That's the essence of reverse innovation. And I contend reverse innovation is going to fundamentally change every industry in the next several decades. It perhaps represents the single biggest growth opportunity for corporations. It's going to impact manufacturing, consumer goods, healthcare, education, transportation, energy, you name it. I'm going to give you an example from one industry, healthcare, just to highlight why a rich man would ever want a poor man's product. Let's take a look at the healthcare industry in a rich country like the US. Now, in the US, first of all, we spend a lot of money on healthcare. And even after spending all this money, our healthcare is not necessarily best in class. And even after spending all this money, we cannot guarantee access to healthcare for every American. So in the US, our healthcare system is characterized by very high cost, not necessarily best in class quality, and certainly we cannot guarantee universal access. Suppose I tell you there are breakthrough innovation experiments going on in the healthcare sector in poor countries, which are based on ultra-low-cost healthcare, world-class quality healthcare, and universal access. Wouldn't the rich guy not be interested? By the way, when I'm using the word rich country and poor country, I am not trying to make any value judgments here. This is not about whether a country is desirable to live or not. This is strictly the World Bank definition. According to World Bank, you take the average per capita income in the world and draw a line. Any country below the line is supposed to be poor. And according to that definition, there are 160 poor countries in the world. And in my research, what I have found is in those 160 poor countries, there are numerous breakthrough innovation experiments going on in the healthcare sector, which is based on ultra-low-cost healthcare, world-class quality healthcare, and universal access. Let me give you 3 examples. The first comes from General Electric. General Electric, in their healthcare business, they essentially make medical imaging equipment. This would be your X-ray machine, CAT scanner, MR machine, ultrasound. And what you're seeing here is an electrocardiogram or an ECG machine. ECG, as you know, is the first point of diagnosis for heart attack. GE innovated this machine. This is an extraordinarily powerful machine. This has saved lives. This has saved millions of American lives. This ECG machine costs about $20,000. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment how a US hospital operates. If you walked into a US hospital, what you're likely to see is a sophisticated imaging center. In that sophisticated imaging center, you will see appliance-size equipment. There will be a $1 million X-ray machine, $2 million CAT scanner, $3 million MR machine, and this $20,000 ECG machine. And when the doctor asks the patient to go to the imaging center, the patient goes there. This is the way a US hospital operates. I want you to shift the scene for a moment to India. Certainly, General Electric sells this $20,000 ECG machine in India to the top 10% of the economic pyramid. After all, there are going to be rich folks in poor countries, just like the way you have poor folks in rich countries. It may be a thin slice, but it exists. But then the question is, what about the remaining 90% of Indians? For the remaining 90% of Indians, this $20,000 ECG machine is practically useless. Why? The first and the most obvious reason is affordability. You see, on this $20,000 ECG machine, a single ECG scan will cost $200. 90% of Indians, most of them live in rural India. In rural India, they are making $2 a day or even less. Now, you can do the mental math. If I'm making $2 a day and somebody tells me a single ECG scan will cost $200, I have to work for 100 days just to pay for one scan. That's only to determine whether I need further tests. I'm going to say, forget it. I can live with my chest pain. But affordability is not the only problem. Suppose you found a rural India where everyone is willing to pay the $200 per scan. There is yet another problem. And that is, in rural India, there are no hospitals. If there are no hospitals, you can't ask the patient to go to the hospital. The hospital has to come to the patient. That means someone has got to take this $20,000 ECG machine door to door. Well, this $20,000 ECG machine weighs 500 pounds. If something weighs 500 pounds, I can't put it in my backpack and take it door to door. Suppose you manage to put it in a bus and take it to a village where, let us say, everyone is willing to pay the $200 per scan. There is yet another problem. And that is, this $20,000 ECG machine works only on house current. And as you well know, in rural India, electricity is either unavailable or unreliable. So even if you manage to take it in a rural area, maybe there is no electricity to operate this equipment. Suppose you found a village in India where everyone is willing to pay the $200 per scan, and you manage to take it in a bus to that village. And let's also assume there is 100% assured electricity. There is yet another problem. And that is, this $20,000 ECG machine is extraordinarily powerful machine. This can be operated only by trained doctors. In fact, typically it comes with a 500-page user's manual. Well, in rural India, there are no trained doctors. That means 90% of Indians are non-consumers of this $20,000 ECG machine. That does not mean 90% of Indians don't suffer from heart attack. This is one of the main points that I want to get across to you. Non-consumers have exactly the same problem as consumers. The reason they are non-consumers is because they can't consume the product consumers are consuming. Otherwise, they would already become consumers. Converting non-consumers into consumers is the single biggest growth opportunity for corporations. Today on planet Earth, there are 7 billion people. Out of the 7 billion people, only 2 billion have the purchasing power to buy the goods and services corporations make today. Every possible goods and service. 5 billion are too poor to afford to buy those goods and services. Converting the 5 billion non-consumers into consumers is the single biggest growth opportunity. And that requires breakthrough innovation. One of the very first projects I got involved in when I went to GE in 2008 is we set out to innovate this $500 ECG machine. On this $500 ECG machine, a single ECG scan will cost 10 cents. If a single ECG scan costs 10 cents, if I got a severe chest pain, I am willing to allocate 10 cents out of my $2 budget for a scan. Not only that, this $500 ECG machine is extremely lightweight. In fact, it weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola. If something weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola, I can put it in my backpack and take it door to door. Not only that, this $500 ECG machine works on battery. On a single battery charge, it can produce 750 ECG scans. Finally, this $500 ECG machine is extremely simple to use. Perhaps you can't quite see it in this slide. This $500 ECG machine has got only 2 buttons. There is a green button, and then there is a red button. You push the green button, it works. You push the red button, it stops. As long as you know how to read traffic signs, you should be able to operate this machine. GE has opened up a whole new market for this $500 ECG machine in India. But here is the real bonus. This $500 ECG machine is now sold in 194 countries, including generating exciting new growth for GE in the US. Now, you may wonder, why would a rich man ever want this poor man's product? Imagine, as an example, suppose there is an accident on a highway in San Diego. An ambulance is going there. You can't put an appliance-size $20,000 ECG machine inside the ambulance, but I can put a pocket-size $500 ECG machine. First example of reverse innovation, where the innovation starts first in a poor country and then transforms the life of people in a rich country. Here is the second example. I can ask you what this building is. Since I'm giving you examples from healthcare, you may probably say it's a hospital. But if you mistook this building for a 5-star hotel, I cannot blame you. This actually happens to be a cardiac facility. It's called Narayana Health in Bangalore, India, NH Hospital for short. This is actually the lobby of this cardiac facility. Certainly looks like lobby of a 5-star hotel. But that's not the point. The point is, in this Narayana Health Bangalore facility, an open heart surgery costs $3,000. Open heart surgery in the US will cost at least $150,000. Because because open heart surgery in the US costs $150,000, open heart surgery in Bangalore hospital costs $3,000. Because it costs 50 times less, does not mean their quality is 50 times inferior. I don't even know how you can do poor quality heart surgery. One measure of quality in a heart surgery is mortality rates 30 days after surgery. For NH Hospital in Bangalore, their mortality rates 30 days after surgery is 1.2%. The US average is 2%. So their quality is on par, maybe slightly even ahead. In fact, this is another point that I want to get across to you. Reverse innovation is not about lowering cost, no. Reverse innovation is about pushing the price-performance paradigm. Reverse innovation is about doing more with less. It's about doing a lot more with a lot less. In fact, counterintuitive as it may seem, the quality demanded by non-consumers in poor countries typically tends to be higher than the quality demanded by consumers in rich countries. And that's certainly true for open heart surgery. What I mean by this is, if you are doing an open heart surgery on an American in Mayo Clinic, the surgeon doesn't have to have the same high quality to reduce mortality as compared to doing the same open heart surgery on an Indian in the Bangalore facility. Why? For one thing, Indians tend to have bad hearts. No, not bad people's hearts, but weak hearts. Genetically, we have weak hearts. So that means a cardiac surgeon operating on the same procedure on an Indian has to have a higher skill to reduce mortality. Not only that, those of you who have gone to India, you realize pollution in India is terrible. Hygienic conditions in India are not that good. Therefore, post-surgery, mortality tends to be generally higher in India. So if you adjust for these risk factors, what NH Hospital has achieved is truly remarkable. And I believe I told you, NH Hospital does not deny open heart surgery for anybody. They guarantee universal access. This hospital has been in existence for about a decade. In this decade, they have not turned anyone away who needs open heart surgery. If you can't pay, they either do it free or at a subsidized rate. So much so, 1/3 of the customers don't pay. Only 2/3 of the customers pay. And the 2/3 of the customers who pay 50 times less than what we pay in the US. And I believe I told you this is the most profitable cardiac facility in the world. This is not a charitable organization. This is not a non-profit organization. In fact, the major investor in NH Hospital is a private equity firm, a US private equity firm. You know how brutal they are in demanding short-term financial results. Can you imagine a for-profit firm? NH Hospital, just like General Electric or PepsiCo or any other for-profit organization. Can you imagine a for-profit organization which gives away its product free of cost to 1/3 of the customers? They only charge 2/3. And for the 2/3, they charge 50 times less than what we charge in the US. And then recover the cost of 100% of the customers on 2/3 paying customers. And return the best profit of all cardiac facilities in the world. The person who started NH Hospital, his name is Dr. Devi Shetty. Dr. Devi Shetty used to be the personal cardiac surgeon for Mother Teresa. That's where he got the inspiration to do more with less, to do a lot more with a lot less. I want to show you a short video so that you get a sense for Dr. Devi Shetty and the great institution that he has created.
With a population of over 1 billion, affordable healthcare is out of reach of a vast majority of Indians. Nearly 700 million people in India have no access to specialist care, either due to lack of reach or lack of affordability.
When I came back to this country, there was no cardiac surgery. So hardly any cardiac surgery. There was nothing like a pediatric cardiac surgery. So we started the whole concept of pediatric cardiac surgery.
In less than a decade since inception, Narayana Hrudayalaya has become Asia's largest cardiac care center. Surgeons at the hospital perform a large number of different cardiac surgeries and procedures, including complex pediatric surgeries. Today, the hospital performs as many as 30 to 35 heart surgeries a day and 70 to 80 cardiac procedures. Narayana Hrudayalaya also does the largest number of pediatric heart surgeries in the world. Each day, about 2,500 patients visit the outpatient department of the Bangalore facility alone. And yet, the hospital has achieved a price point affordable to the average Indian.
We are essentially a heart hospital which proved to the world that with the $1,800 you can do a major heart operation. So essentially we want to reduce the cost of high-tech healthcare, make it affordable to the citizens of this world.
Those in need of surgery travel to Narayana Hrudayalaya for treatment, and the hospital treats patients from across the world.
My daughter has a hole in the heart. Well, let me preface this. I also have a dual citizenship in the U.S. Living in the U.S. for the most part, my mother lived with me, and she has cases. She's somebody I had to take to the hospital very often. She has diabetes and a whole. So I took her. We lived in New York, so I've taken her to the best hospitals as far as I know. And when I came in here to their cardiac unit, I was blown away. I'm in awe. That's the only way I can explain it. I get back so emotional because there's so many more people than my daughter who can't even afford what I can afford. And in India, they're getting that help. And then it makes me wonder about countries like mine. So I'm praying for Dr. Shetty, am I saying his name right? And people like him to develop this module, not just for India, but for the world.
Ultra low cost, world-class quality, universal access. How does he do this? As an example, NH Hospital buys the same piece of equipment that, say, world-class cardiac facilities like Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or Mass General will purchase. So that means he can also give the same world-class quality. But his cost also will be so high. How come his cost is 50 times less? Because he uses his equipment 50 times more. Isn't this not what we learned 100 years ago in manufacturing? Isn't this not what Henry Ford taught us? If you mass produce automobiles, cost per automobile will come down. He has essentially taken principles we know from industrial organizations for 100 years and applying it to medicine. He is mass producing heart surgery. He is producing heart surgery on an assembly line. Now, when I mentioned this to my American friends, what is their first reaction? Their first reaction is, if you mass produce open heart surgery, quality will suffer. I ask why? We don't complain about the quality of automobiles when it comes off of assembly line. What's so special about heart surgery? Counterintuitive as it may seem, when you mass produce open heart surgery, quality dramatically goes up. Why? Because their cardiac surgeons do so many cardiac surgeries. They have seen all possible complications. They are at the cutting edge of their fields. Not only that, there is no one type of cardiac surgery. Let's assume, for the sake of simplicity, there are 10 different types of open heart surgery. Because of very high volumes, they can ask their cardiac surgeon to specialize in one of the 10. Specialization leads to high quality. Isn't this not what we learned in Operations 101? He has essentially taken principles from manufacturing and applying it to medicine. I want you to contrast the way NH Hospital operates versus the way an American hospital operates. If you walk into a US hospital, what you're likely to see is a sophisticated imaging center where there will be a $1 million X-ray machine, $2 million CAT scanner, $3 million MR machine, used 15% of the time. It's sitting idle for 85% of the time. Why? Because in the US we believe as Americans, we have a birthright to have the MR machine available whenever we need it. I ask why? Will we tolerate Ford Motor Company if it kept its most expensive piece of equipment 85% time idle? Ultra low cost, world-class quality, universal access. What is not to like? This March 2014, Devi Shetty and NH Hospital, they have opened a 200-bed cardiac facility in Cayman Islands. And Cayman Islands, as you know, is a 60-minute flight from Miami. In fact, this cardiac facility is targeted at American patients. In fact, over the next decade, it's going to become a 2,000-bed cardiac facility, largest cardiac facility in the world. And he is targeting American patients. He wants to demonstrate how we can do open heart surgery for a fraction of the cost it takes to do the same procedure in Mayo Clinic. And unlike Mayo Clinic, you can also stay in Cayman Islands for 1 month for vacation, as opposed to suffering in Rochester, Minnesota during winter. For medical tourism, why should Americans go all the way to India? Let's bring India to America. Second example of reverse innovation. Here is the third example. The picture that you're seeing is a picture of a man who has unfortunately lost his leg. When someone loses his leg, we give that person an artificial leg. In the US, an artificial leg will cost about $20,000. Perhaps you don't know who this gentleman is. He's actually a medical doctor. He goes by Dr. J. He's a citizen of Thailand. He actually lives in Thailand. Dr. J actually got his medical degree at Northwestern. So he fully understands the US medical system. And Dr. J wanted to create an artificial leg for amputees in Thailand. Thailand, as you know, is a poor country, just like India. And 90% of the people in Thailand are making $2 a day. Now again, you can do the mental math. If I'm making $2 a day and somebody is selling me an artificial leg for $20,000, I have to work for 10,000 days to pay for that product. If there are 200 working days in a year, I have to work for 50 years. That does not mean amputees in Thailand do not need an artificial leg. Non-consumers have exactly the same needs as the consumers. So Dr. J decided he will create an artificial leg for $30. Again, reverse innovation is not about lowering cost. No. Reverse innovation is about offering very high quality at a very low cost. It's about pushing the price-performance envelope. Just like open heart surgery, the quality demanded by non-consumers in Thailand for artificial leg is higher than the quality demanded by the consumers of the $20,000 artificial leg. Why? Suppose in the US, suppose you receive an artificial leg in the US. You are still walking on nicely paved roads. Whereas if you're an amputee and you received an artificial leg in Thailand, you're walking on uneven roads. That means you are punishing the artificial leg. It has to withstand so much more stress. Unlike Americans, people in Thailand have some peculiar habits. They squat on the floor. They sit cross-legged. Imagine you're an amputee, you received an artificial leg, you're squatting on the floor. You're sitting cross-legged. Think about how much stress you're putting on that artificial leg. 90% of the people in Thailand work in agriculture. Suppose you're an amputee, you received an artificial leg, and you're working in agriculture. The agricultural fields are not just uneven, they are wet and mushy. People in Thailand don't just bicycle to work, they bicycle for work. They ride the bike to make a living. Imagine if you're an amputee, you received an artificial leg, and you have to bicycle 18 hours a day to make a living. Or you have to climb a tree to pluck a coconut. So the innovation challenge Dr. J faced was he has to create an artificial leg for a $30 price point, which is superior in quality to the $20,000 artificial leg. This is always the reverse innovation challenge. How do you give very, very high performance at ultra low cost? There were two breakthrough innovations Dr. J did, which is what pushed the price performance envelope. The first innovation related to the raw materials. See, in the US, we design artificial legs using very, very expensive materials like titanium. And obviously, Dr. J does not have a budget to use titanium. Neither such materials are even available in Thailand. So his breakthrough innovation was he designed an artificial leg using recycled yogurt plastic containers. We throw them away in the US, is it not? Think about how much we waste in the US. He decided to convert waste into wealth. When you design an artificial leg using recycled yogurt plastic containers, cost comes down. In fact, cost goes to zero because it's thrown away anyway. But this is not about lowering cost, no. This is about simultaneously improving quality and lowering cost. In fact, the $30 artificial leg of Dr. J was superior in quality as compared to the titanium-based one. For one thing, think about an artificial leg made of recycled yogurt plastic containers. How light it is. As compared to titanium-based artificial leg, think about how much weight you are carrying every day. The $30 artificial leg of Dr. J was lightweight, comfortable, and durable. The second breakthrough innovation he had, which pushed the price performance envelope, related to the fitting process. See, in the US, we employ very, very experienced technicians. They are obviously very expensive as well. And they work with the patient for several weeks in fitting the artificial leg and doing the rehab. Dr. J does not have a budget for employing these experienced technicians. Neither such experienced people are even available in Thailand. So his breakthrough innovation was he trained amputees who received artificial legs. He trained them to fit artificial legs for others. And this amputee technicians pushed the price performance envelope. Certainly they lowered the cost. After all, these are unemployed people. They were happy to get a job. It's so noble on the part of Dr. J to employ them. But this is not just about lowering cost. As it turns out, the amputee technicians in Thailand are far better in fitting the artificial leg as compared to the trained technicians in the US. Why? For one thing, they were approaching this as God's work because they got their life back. Because they got their life back, they were approaching this not as a job, but as a passion. Imagine if you do anything with that level of passion, you are going to put forth highest quality. Not only that, based on personal experience, they know where it hurts. What kinds of exercises you should do to accelerate progress. Not only that, they were outstanding in converting non-consumers into consumers. If someone asked them, why should I buy your $30 artificial leg? They can point to their own leg and say it works. Can you really design a $30 artificial leg which is superior in quality to the $20,000 artificial leg? Let's watch a short video.
See, he jumps. You can see what stress it must have. One kilometer in 4 minutes 30 seconds.
A couple of years ago, Dr. J decided he will fit an artificial leg for an animal. See, the national animal in Thailand is elephants. And elephants go next door for work. The next door is Burma. And as you know, Burma is full of landmines. So sometimes these elephants accidentally step on a landmine and hurt themselves. The picture that you are seeing here is a picture of baby Mosha. Baby Mosha is an 8-month-old elephant. And she is here with her mom. And baby Mosha went with her mom into Burma. And baby Mosha must have been a mischievous baby, so she stepped on a landmine and lost one of her legs. Now, if an elephant loses its leg, it dies very fast. Why? Because even a baby elephant weighs 2,500 pounds. If you weigh 2,500 pounds, you can't balance yourself on 3 legs. And if such a big object is immobile, it dies fast. And as you well know, typically, elephants live longer than human beings. Humans live maybe for 75 years on an average. Elephants on an average live for 100 years. So 100 years of life for baby Mosha would have been denied. So Dr. J decided he will design a $30 artificial leg for baby Mosha. I want you to imagine the innovation challenge here. This elephant is going to put 2,500 pounds of weight on that artificial leg. Think about how much stress it has got to withstand. Elephants don't wear shoes. Can you really design a $30 artificial leg for an elephant that can actually work? Let's see how happy baby Mosha is. The $30 artificial leg is part of the Guinness Book of World Records. I got a simple question for you. If someone can design a $30 artificial leg for an elephant, which has got to be such a high degree of difficulty innovation challenge, what excuse do we have in the US for designing artificial leg for humans for $20,000, which is a lot less complicated procedure? I say reverse innovation has the potential to transform just about every industry. Let me give you an example from one other industry, housing. Last year, I wrote up this article in Harvard Business Review, and this was purely a thought experiment. And my thought experiment was, why can't we design a $300 house for the poor? And the reason why I had this thought experiment was, today on planet Earth, there are 75 million people who live on pavements, who are homeless. 75 million. I want you to think about that. That's the size of the United Kingdom, who sleep on pavements, for whom the sky is the only roof. I asked myself, is this really right? Even insects have homes, is it not? Even a spider has got a home, is it not? So I said, housing has to be a human right. And when I wrote this article of $300 house, it's not about lowering cost. I was making the argument, let's do more with less. Let's do a lot more with lot less. So I was making the argument, why can't we give lot more health to the poor in the $300 house? Lot more education to the poor in the $300 house. Lot more jobs to the poor in the $300 house. You may say, how is it conceptually possible? Take, for instance, health. See, health is not delivered just in hospitals. Health is also delivered in the way you design and construct a house. Today, there are millions and millions of people in poor countries are dying from 3 infectious diseases: tuberculosis, cholera, and malaria. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease. Imagine a hut in a slum, which has got no sunlight, no ventilation. And there are 10 people sleeping in that hut. And if one of the 10 has tuberculosis, it infects the other 9. So my challenge to the designers is, why can't you design a $300 house? It does not cost any extra money. It just requires thinking. and design it with proper sunlight and proper ventilation, thereby dramatically decrease the incidence of tuberculosis. Cholera is a waterborne disease. Why can't we design a $300 house and put potable drinking water, thereby dramatically decrease the incidence of cholera? Malaria is carried by mosquitoes. Why can't we design a $300 house and cover all the exposed parts with mosquito nets, thereby dramatically decrease the incidence of malaria? Why can't we do more with less? Similarly, take a look at education. Education is not delivered just in institutions like this. Education is also delivered in the way you design a house. Take, for instance, a country like Haiti. Haiti does not have electricity the way we enjoy it in the US. That means once the sun sets, the country goes dark. We cannot even imagine living like that in this country where 50% of our life is in pitch darkness. That means in Haiti, a kid can't do homework once the sun sets. So my challenge to the design community is, why can't you design a $300 house and find inexpensive, low-cost, renewable energy source, thereby deliver more education in that house? Why can't we do more with less? By the way, ultra low-cost housing is not a new topic. It's been talked about for decades. But there is a fundamental difference between the way others talk about it and the way I wrote about it a year ago. And that is, most of the people who talk about ultra low-cost housing, or for that matter, any ultra low-cost product for the poor, they always talk about it as charity. Just give it away free. My point is, charity is not scalable. This is not a question of charity. This is a challenge for innovation. If you can make money with doing $3,000 open heart surgery, you can make money in $300 house. I don't want corporations to come into this space as corporate social responsibility. No, they got to come into this space as a core part of their strategy. And they will come into this space as a core part of their strategy only if it is a big opportunity. How big is this opportunity? As I mentioned to you, today 5 billion people are non-consumers. And let's say each household has 5 members. That means you need 1 billion homes. Again, you can do the mental math. 1 billion homes times $300 a house, that's a $300 billion opportunity. Nobody can laugh at that number. In fact, when I wrote this article originally, I actually allocated $10 out of the $300 budget for a nano iPhone. And this is not a luxury. I said, why can't this house has digital connectivity? Thereby, we deliver more education to the poor through e-learning. We deliver more banking to the poor through mobile banking. We deliver more health to the poor through telemedicine. Why can't we do more with less? By the way, as academics, all that we do is we write articles. We don't actually do anything. We just keep on writing articles. As the saying goes, if you can, you do. If you can't, you teach. I can't, so I teach. But this one particular article got so much attention. Harvard Business Review told me, Vijay, for a change, why don't you do something? So I said, let's see how far I can push this concept. So I created a social media platform. You can go visit it, www.300house.com. And quite to my pleasant surprise, 3,500 people joined my community. These are not unemployed people. These are architects and engineers and professors and leading thinkers in the housing area. And the energy was so high, I decided to do a global design competition. We invited designs from anybody and everybody in the world. We put together a blue ribbon panel of judges, and we picked 6 winners, 2 from the US, 1 Mexico, 1 Brazil, 1 Germany, and 1 India. And early part of this year, we brought them to the Dartmouth College campus, the 6 winners, and we paired them with other experts from MIT, Harvard, Dartmouth. We had a lot of fun for 4 days. We designed this $300 house, and our next step is we are going to build a prototype $300 village in Haiti using this design. And last month, I was in India, and one of the winners from India happens to be a corporation called Mahindra & Mahindra, And they have actually built 2 pilot villages in India using the $300 house concept. My point is simple. Whether it is housing, energy, healthcare, manufacturing, there is potential for fundamental transformation when you got ultra low cost, high performance products, which is what the poor countries need. Now, if this is such a mega opportunity, how well are American corporations positioned to capture this opportunity? In my research, what I have found is American companies are extremely poorly positioned to capture this opportunity. And that's not because they lack capabilities. In fact, America has the best technologies in the world. It's not about capabilities, it's mindset. Because American companies always approach emerging markets and poor countries using American logic. In fact, the more successful an American company is, the more they struggle in poor countries. Let me quickly give you 2 examples. Kellogg is clearly a world leader in the breakfast cereal market. Today, probably for breakfast, you had a Kellogg brand, maybe Rice Krispies or cornflakes. Now, Kellogg has been operating in India for the last 35 years. Yet their total sales revenue in India is $5 million. If your sales revenue in India is $5 million, that means you are practically an irrelevant player in India. A market which is the biggest and the fastest growing breakfast market in the world. The question is why? The second example is ESPN. ESPN is part of Disney. ESPN is practically a non-factor in India, which is perhaps the largest and the fastest growing media and entertainment industry in the world. The answer to Kellogg and ESPN and every other successful American company that I have come across is the same. And the answer is they approach emerging markets using American logic. Now, very quickly, what's the problem with Kellogg? If you actually ask Kellogg, they will tell you they have already done the innovation for India. Take, for instance, cornflakes. If you go to India, you will see the plain cornflakes, just like the way you see it in the US. But in India, you're going to see some product innovations that you are unlikely to see in the US. Because in India, they have mango cornflakes, banana cornflakes. So they think they've done the innovation for India. Now, what's the problem? Those of you who have either gone to India or known Indians as friends, you know we have some very peculiar habits. For instance, for breakfast, we always like to eat hot breakfast. So you pour hot milk on your cereal. I don't care whether it is plain cornflakes or banana cornflakes or mango cornflakes. It becomes a mush. Who wants to eat that? So the only Indians who are buying your cornflakes are Indians who behave like Americans, who pour cold milk on their cornflakes. So the CEO of Kellogg sitting in Chicago is probably saying $5 million sales revenue in India is okay. Once Indians become more civilized, they will come to my cornflakes. The question is, in a multipolar world, who decides who is civilized and who is not civilized? ESPN, what's their problem? See, last month, when I was in India, I was staying in this hotel, and I saw this lady who comes to clean my room. She always came after 6 p.m. Because if you come after 6 p.m., you get overtime. Therefore, you get twice the normal salary. Now, once I started talking with her, she told me she has 3 boys, wonderful husband, a wonderful family, and she actually subscribes to 5 paid movie channels. By the way, this is like HBO, Showtime, etc. Paid cable channels are very expensive in India. That means she is a copious user of media and entertainment. Just to give you a point of comparison, I know a CEO in India who only has 1 paid movie channel. That means this housekeeping staff, she is a copious user of media and entertainment. If you're ESPN sitting in Atlanta and use the American logic to do segmentation. In the US, you are not going to focus on housekeeping staff in hotel as a major customer. So if you use the same logic in India, you would have missed her completely. Out of curiosity, I asked her. I said, I don't want to insult you, but I'm kind of curious. I would not have expected you to spend so much money on cable channels. And she told me, sorry, you're right. But if I don't have the 5 paid movie channels, my 3 boys will go out every day. When they go out every day, they spend a lot of money. By having the 5 paid movie channels, I keep them at home. So she has done her discounted cash flow analysis and figured out it's net positive. Then she told me if I don't have the 5 paid movie channels, my mother-in-law will go next door to watch a movie. If my mother-in-law go next door to watch a movie, who's going to stick around and cook for my 3 boys? I have to stay home to cook for the 3 boys. Then I can't come to the hotel after 6 p.m. and make twice the salary. She may be poor. That does not mean she can't be a consumer. Happens to be a copious consumer. She may be poor. Therefore, she is clearly illiterate. That does not mean she is not intelligent. She may be poor. That does not mean she doesn't understand value. She is an astute observer of value, just like you and I are. It is for us to understand what is the value she is seeking and use your innovation to unlock that value. Let me just close with this and take questions. My basic point is, in emerging markets, when American companies go into emerging markets, never ask this question. Where is the market for my transplanted global strategy? You are completely lost. This is the question Kellogg is asking. How can I place my cornflakes into the breakfast market in India? You are totally lost. Instead, ask the question, what is the value the bulk of the non-consumers are seeking in these poor countries? And then use your innovation to unlock this value. And if you want to really succeed in reverse innovation, perhaps we need to fundamentally change the way we even think about innovation. Think about how we approach innovation in a rich country like the US. When an American executive wants to innovate, what does he want? He wants more money. Give me more money so I can innovate more. We always want to spend more resources to innovate so that I can add more performance, more features into my product. Gillette used to have one razor in there, one blade in their razor. Then they went to Mac 3, 3 blades in that razor. Do you really need 3 blades to have a shave? And when they wanted to innovate more, what did they do? Profusion has 5 blades. If they want to do more innovation, soon we'll have 15, 20 blades in that razor. We have to, reverse innovation says, let's innovate by spending less. In fact, we have to change the very definition of innovation from value for money to value for many. And value for many is about doing more with less. It's about doing a lot more with a lot less for a lot of people. And that requires that frugal thinking, that frugal innovation. As an example of frugal innovation, you must have followed the recent India's Mars mission. And the total cost of that Mars mission for India was $75 million. Just to put this in perspective, Hollywood made a movie. It's about a failed mission to Mars. It's called Gravity. And that movie cost $150 million. So a make-believe movie of going to Mars cost twice as much as a successful real-life Mars mission. Perhaps another way I can frame the same thing is, if you take 100 poor people at random and 100 rich people at random, there is absolutely no difference between these two groups. Poor people have the same needs as the rich. Poor people have the same desires as the rich. Poor people have the same ambition as the rich. Why can't they have the same access to opportunity? That's the essence of reverse innovation. Thank you very much. We have time for a few questions. We have.
What is the area that most excites you of what you see in the limitless possibilities?
The question she's asking is, what is it that excites you in the limitless possibilities? In fact, I would say the three most basic things we have to address would be housing, education, and healthcare. Because that becomes almost the foundation to unlock enormous value in poor countries. Because they're almost the basic foundation. In fact, the reason I got interested in housing, and the reason I wrote that article is, when I was growing up in India, I was walking through a slum every day to go to a bus stop to catch the bus to the place I have to go. I did that for about 3 years. When I was working in India for 3 years, from my house, I had to always walk through the slum to catch the bus to go to work. And that made a huge impact on me. Because what I saw in that slum was the slum does not even have protection. Those huts don't even have any protection on the side. That means even a mild rain, everybody in that house is completely drenched. And there is no bathroom or shower facility inside that hut. That means everybody is taking shower outside, including women. It's not just a question of privacy issue, it is also a health issue. Because all the dirty water is flowing in the slum. And I saw young children in that slum. I have 2 daughters, and the women children that I saw in that slum are no different than my daughters in terms of their intelligence, their ambition. But because, you see, what happens in the slum is what I call the vicious cycle. Because most of the slum dwellers are actually coming from village in search of jobs. They come to a city in search of jobs. Because they don't get a proper job, they try to build a house with materials that are available free of cost, which would be tin and cardboard and things like that. And because they have a very badly designed house, they fall sick too often. Because they fall sick too often, they can't make too much wages. Because they don't make too much wages, they are condemned in that house. Because they are poor, they don't send their kids to school. Because the kids don't go to school, they don't acquire any skills and capabilities, they are also mired in poverty. Therefore, I say this vicious cycle of poverty has to be broken. And I say the central piece to break it is the house. House to me is a metaphor for really breaking that vicious cycle. And I would say we'll add to that health and education. I say that really excites me. But of course, the possibilities in reverse innovation goes much beyond these 3 sectors. Other questions?
Do you think the medical issue here in the United States is because we're not directly, most of us don't directly pay for our health care, so we don't get to discriminate on price?
I think you're absolutely right, because in India, we don't have insurance. Because we don't have insurance, people have to pay out of their pockets. And therefore, in a market-based system, you have to really bring down the cost, because people are actually paying. But this is what I would say. By the way, Indian healthcare system, by and large, is in very bad shape. There are hospitals in India which are world-class, but there are a lot of Indian healthcare system is in very bad shape. So I'm not saying the whole healthcare system is something we have to emulate, but there are pockets we can emulate. So you think about it this way. The reason why there is breakthrough innovation in healthcare delivery that happens in India is India has 1.2 billion people. 1,200 million people you have to take care of, with very few doctors, very few hospitals. And these people can't pay a lot. Under that system, if you have lots and lots of people who can't pay a lot, and you have to take care of their health with very few doctors and very few hospitals, the only way you can do it is through breakthrough delivery innovations. Therefore, I was searching in India, and I have found about 50 Indian hospitals which are truly breakthrough innovation. Not everyone is good, but I have found 50 hospitals which are doing incredible work, where they're able to deliver enormous quality healthcare at an unbelievably low cost. And that's the only way you can do it.
You already gave us example about healthcare and the houses. Can you give us an example of reverse innovation in education, please?
The question she's asking is, can we think of a reverse innovation in education? By the way, the education industry in the US is in much worse shape as compared to the healthcare industry. We think healthcare industry in the US is in bad shape, but education is in even worse shape. And part of it is the cost of our education is extraordinarily high. I teach at Dartmouth. The annual tuition for undergrads is about $75,000. And so a 4-year education is $300,000. That means very rich can afford it and very poor can afford it. And the entire middle is squeezed out. And I ask myself, why does the Dartmouth quality education cost so high? I come to the conclusion there are 3 reasons why it costs so high. Reason number 1 is we have bundled the product. You see, there is research and then there is teaching. We have bundled it together. You don't get any revenues from research. You get revenues only from teaching. So the cost of research is borne by the students. Just as to give you a point of comparison, I teach at the Tuck School only one course, which meets for 4.5 weeks, 2 times a week. That means 9 days out of a year, I am generating revenues for the college. Out of 365 days, I am really generating revenues only for 1% of my time. But unfortunately, those poor students are paying for my 99% unproductive time. So because we have bundled the product, the cost is too high. This is almost like, imagine if every automobile company is completely vertically integrated. That means every automobile company had their own steel plant to make steel, own aluminum plant to make aluminum, own every part that they need in an automobile, they put up a plant. The cost of automobiles will go through the roof. So we don't believe in academic, the notion of comparative advantage in economies of scale. So the first reason is we bundle the product. The second reason is we do everything residential. That means I have to build the dormitory, I have to build the cafeteria, I have to have the football stadium, I have to have this, I have to have that. That drives up the cost. The third is our admission policy is we admit only those students who tolerate this inefficiency. We don't have any culture of efficiency in universities because we are not subject to market pressures. We are not going to go out of business. We have a culture of inefficiency, and we admit students who tolerate this inefficiency. In fact, I would like to call the director of admissions at Dartmouth not director of admissions, but director of rejections. You reject enough people, you end up with a class. In fact, we reject 90% of our people who apply. Can you imagine another industry which turns away 90% of the customers? And we are not even nice. We say, get lost. And we only admit students who somehow believe in the system. This is our model. I want you to shift the scene for a moment to Brazil, for a moment to India. India has huge education need. We cannot close that education need by replicating the American model. In fact, our model has to be principle of inclusion, not principle of exclusion. And it has got to be very low cost, very high quality. Therefore, I have some thoughts in my own mind as to how you can unbundle this whole product and really bring down the cost. Why can't we offer Dartmouth quality education for $1,000? Why does it have to cost $300,000? There is no reason why it has got to cost $300,000. And we can demonstrate, and that will come from emerging markets because the need is so huge. And somebody will figure out, just like the $30 artificial leg, $3,000 open heart surgery, they'll figure out a way to bring down the cost. And there are models like that evolving in Brazil. There is an organization called Croton International, which is doing some incredibly creative things both in K through 12 as well as in higher education. So wait and watch is what I would say. Maybe time for one more question.
Would you argue that reverse innovation is always possible in any kind of problem that you seek? Is it always going to be the solution?
The question he's asking is reverse innovation possible in every industry, is always possible. I want to approach with that perspective because ultimately it is only the limiting factor is human imagination. Because somebody at one point may have said, well, artificial leg, it's not possible to make it for anything less than $20,000. Somebody may have said open heart surgery has to cost $150,000. It's not possible. By the way, isn't this not what Henry Ford did? Automobiles were invented by Mr. Benz, who went on to create Mercedes-Benz in 1876. When he invented automobiles, it was a craft. When automobile manufacturing is a craft, that means it is handmade. Because it is handmade, you can only make a few of them. And it costed a lot of money. So people thought there is no other way to do this. And then Henry Ford came and said, from craft, let us move it to mass. And it's not just a shift in, he didn't come up with any path-breaking new technology per se, as much as fundamental different thinking. And the whole thing led to a whole new revolution. So I would say it is possible in just about every industry. Maybe this is a good way for me to wrap up. What I'm really talking about in reverse innovation is really about globalization of knowledge. And if you stop to think about it, that is the basis on which the great country of America has been built, is it not? This great country has been built on the premise that knowledge can be in any part of the world. Innovation can be in any part of the world. We have to respect globalization of knowledge, globalization of ideas, because that's the basis on which we invite people from all over the world, is it not? Is it not true? I am a beneficiary of it. Millions of people like me are beneficiaries of it. Because we were humble enough to accept we don't have all the answers in this country. In fact, I come from an extremely poor family. Somehow they located me. I said, why don't you come to the US and see what you can do for us? In fact, I still remember in the late 70s when I came to this country, I had $11 in my pocket, maybe my parents' life savings. And it was not a non-stop flight. It stopped in London. And then I saw Cadbury's milk chocolate. I've never had milk chocolate in my life, so I was kind of tempted. But it costed $6. So I was wondering, should I spend $6 out of my $11 to buy that bar of chocolate? Then I told myself, well, if I landed in Boston with $5 or $11, what difference does it make? So I bought that bar of chocolate. You invite people who have to spend 50% of their assets on a bar of chocolate. These are the kinds of people you invite because we respect that ideas and innovation could be in any part of the world. We want to invite that to build this great nation. In fact, I still remember the very first week when I came into this country, I got a letter from the Publishers Clearinghouse. I didn't even open the envelope. On the envelope, it said, Vijay Govindarajan, you've already won $10 million. I said, I love America. One day, $5 is still $10 million. But jokes apart, we have to bring back the same spirit if America has to be a great country in the next 200 years. That's the essence of reverse innovation. We have to be obviously curious about the problems of the American consumer, for sure, but have the humility to be curious about the problems of the people in the poor world. That is the best way we can really strengthen the US. Another way I can frame this is, to me, income inequality is the #1 problem in the world today. By far the #1 problem in the world. In fact, the top 85 richest people in the world, if you add up their wealth, it's equal to the wealth of the bottom 3.6 billion people. 85 people, their wealth is equal to the wealth of 3,600 million people. In New York City, the mayoral race, which happened a couple of years ago, it was fought on Tale of Two Cities. What are they talking about? Tale of two cities. It's about the difference in income between the rich and the poor. This is the most fundamental issue this generation, your generation, has to tackle. And there are two very different models to attack income inequality. The extreme form of one is called communism. And communism attacks income inequality by making everybody equal, by making everybody poor. It doesn't work. It has miserably failed. Soviet Union collapse is a great example. The country where I come from, India, is another great example. We followed socialism and government really redistributing wealth. Since independence, we followed socialism. We followed a variation of communism. What happened in the 50 years since independence? We bankrupted the country. It doesn't work. The second way to deal with income inequality is capitalism. The American form of capitalism. The 20th century capitalism, that too has miserably failed us. Because the 20th century capitalism, American companies did the easy thing. The easy thing is to take their capabilities and innovate for the rich. They pluck the low-hanging fruit. In fact, when you do that, income inequality even widens. In fact, in India, in 1990, we embraced American form of capitalism. Of course, the overall economy has grown in India, but the disparity in income between rich and poor has become worse in the last 20 years. Now, what is the answer? American form of capitalism has failed us. Communism has failed us. What do we do? I don't think we should move the pendulum back to populism and government handouts and redistribution. I believe capitalism is the answer. But we must innovate capitalism itself. We must create compassionate capitalism, responsible capitalism, inclusive capitalism. What does that mean? It means all of you are getting great education and you're going to go and work for companies and innovate for the rich, which perhaps you should continue to do. But at least I will call on some of you. Use your great education. When you go to work for companies, why don't you innovate for the poor? Thereby bridge the income gap. I think reducing income inequality has to be the highest form of human achievement. And that is the opportunity your generation has. And that's the promise of reverse innovation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vijay. Awesome.